you've barely touched your coffee.
I don't like coffee. No, I just can't. No matter how manly, we're talking about men stuff. This is I get with the comic. Nobody said, "Look, I would have killed everybody in this room."
Goes to credibility.
You don't go. There's no mafioso movie. We're gonna kill him. Two guys go in, rip him up, and make sure his family pays for that. Hold on a minute. There's something about a straw that is just horrified.
Hey, did you see my truck?
Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think?
Loved it. I've been to Barrett-Jackson and bought probably 5 cars down there. Yes, I did see that car. And I said, who made that for you?
The company is called Sugar Creek. They're up in Ohio, Washington Courthouse. And the guy is called John Richardson. You should know him. You'd love him.
That's what he does is resto rods or whatever you call it.
Well, yeah and no. What he does for real is he's sold you all the bacon you've ever eaten. He's the guy that sells
all
the
of
bacon,
the bacon
to like Oscar Mayer and Smithfield, and they're like the major bacon wholesaler. But he's crazy for cars. And so
I'm stuck on the bacon thing.
I know, but literally at Sugar Creek, there's this bacon factory, and across the street is a 10,000 square foot fabrication house with a couple dozen dudes who are the best at what they do. And he's probably got 200 old junkers behind the building, and they're constantly in the process of turning these old turds into these beautiful classics,
right?
That guys like you would buy.
Well, as I said, I just had a car dealer come by my shop in North Hollywood, and the same thing. I said, resto rods have taught me the value of GM, Ford, Chrysler, Ferrari. That's what they do for a living.
Yeah,
we build hot rods at my shop, and isn't that beautiful? And then me, the functional guy, goes, "Has anybody driven this?" Because generally, it takes 3 to 4 years to make some of these really high-end resto rods, and takes 5 years to sort them out because they don't work. They're not functional.
Yeah,
that's old Porsche design. Form follows function.
Right.
I love that. Sometimes it looks horrible, but it works. Porsche has been able to manipulate, at least in my view, they've been able to manipulate beautiful design into a functional piece.
Was that really Porsche that had that turn of phrase?
I studied it. That was my minor in college, design, and forms follows function. I thought that was Bauhaus, actually.
Yeah.
And I thought and I've always loved that whole thing.
Well, it's design, but it's also philosophy adjacent.
Yes.
And you're an old philosophy freak, right?
And I said I constantly going through these quality is the enemy of capitalism. That's when I've turned into a Marxist, because he's right. They don't want Fisker Tools, I believe, if I got the guy right, he said, just make me the best wrench, I'll figure out how to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make the one that sells best, which is a bag of wrenches from overseas that are like $11 for 30 wrenches.
Yeah.
And they're broken in the bag. I mean, they're really broken, and if you pick up a Fisker, a flat nose pliers, as soon as you hold it, you go, that's wow, that's weird. But it's also $39
right
for one wrench.
Last time you and I chatted, I told the story of the time you and I missed our cue on Last Man.
Right.
Because I asked you some question in passing backstage, and you started talking about it was a blender, and you were trying to take a busted blender and explain to your grandkid or something, show them how it could be fixed. But it was all like one piece of extruded plastic.
Right.
Dude, you lost your mind.
Yes.
It was just the two of us in the shadows behind the flats, and you're like in my face, and you're frothing. And you're like, and I'll tell you something else, Rowe. The way they made this thing, and meanwhile the audience is like, we're
Who
late.
cares about them? I care about this little piece of rubber that caused this entire problem of this stupid, and that caused. I did a History Channel show over that.
Yeah.
Over that blender. April Wilkerson, who is this do-it-yourselfer that's the best in the world that we had on that show, she got a hold of it. My shop got a hold of it. Nobody could fix it. April did fix it eventually, and it was a First off, I don't want to give the brand away. The screw, there's no way to get to undo
After what you just did to Fisker?
Well, Fisker was good. I love Fisker's great.
Yeah.
But this.
Well, what was the bag full of wrenches that showed up already busted? Who were those guys?
I don't.
And I think you alluded that Craftsman went all commercial and started.
Well, Craftsman used to be the best. I thought Craftsman should have. They should. I thought they should have branched off when Sears went under. Craftsman should have been its own hardware store. I've always thought it should have been their own hardware store because now I don't know who makes good ratchet anymore. Craftsman's are okay.
Yeah.
I don't know who makes the high end one. The blender idea it is not stopped. I have a technical house. I like my house technical, but my technical department in my house looks like a battleship. I'm the room down the basement where all my furnaces are. Even guys that come fix it go, who did this? Because it's all bleach white walls, and I got so you can get behind the air conditioning unit, behind any kind. Where you fix it looks better than where you operate.
Yeah,
that's my deal. My whole thing is I'm out in the brand is Questron, because you can from a distance I can turn on lights in certain parts of the house. But man, it started going funky on me 3 weeks ago. With some lights didn't work, some lights went on all by themselves. It got so frustrating, and then you get IT guys, and I said, I know, what can I do before a white van with ladders on it shows up? And it's always the same thing.
Yeah.
You unplug it. So there is, I don't care how big the components are, eventually a guy goes, we'll try the freak phenomenon, then plug this front of it, or
hard restart.
Hard restart. I go, isn't there a switch you could have that has a hard restart in it? Well, anyway, they tried that, nothing. Then he sends me a video, and he goes, I don't know what I'm even looking at. And he says, that's the back of the Flaffles. There's a 2-modular Flaffles. The green area, which is a sneaker function of anything. He goes, do they just unplug? No, unplug it. Put your elbow on your knee, look at the gods, and then blink, and there's something you got to pull.
Sure.
The whole thing was based on, don't even understand it, copper is brittle. Copper wire sometimes just separates. I mean, in the middle, it's something about copper. Hot, cold, electric. Eventually, it just popped. And I'm talking about a wire you could barely see it between another clip that had 9 wires in it, but a ground wire was in there. And that ground wire was tapping, and once it stopped, all the lights went out. The whole house went out because of a little tiny wire. And I said, that is something about technology and something about how things get done is what's fascinating to me, and which is why I love what you do. I love being part of this thing. And as told my shop, I break stuff literally before I fix it. I'm not like this guy came through, the second guy came through, and he found that without yanking stuff out. I don't know what he used, what tool he used, but my weakness is plumbing and electronics. I mean, electrical stuff.
Well, your strength is reductive. And I've always admired that about you. The 2 things. First of all, you distill stuff really fast to the tiniest component part, whether it's a little filament of copper or an O-ring or some little rubber knibbling pin or it's a Johnson rod or whatever it is. And then you build from that. And I think that's just interesting as a personality quirk. But what I like is that you work in this big machine, like you're in the Disney machine, you're in the network machine, you're in the scripted machine, and you got to be in rooms all the time with writers who don't know their ass from a hot rock, but who want to write.
I wouldn't say it that way in front of them.
No, you wouldn't, but no, here I am. I'm not in that world.
Right.
But I know for a guy who's a bit of a pedant when it comes to the specificities of maybe his automobiles or electronics, even if you don't, you want to get it right.
Right.
Even in a world of fiction, you want that stuff to be right.
I don't think you can base fiction on reality. That's what even the comedy I do. And we've had this discussion, Last Man Standing, and now when I decided to do Shifting Gears, I said, if you did another one, I said, well, I thought they were kidding. Because I was doing Santa Claus the series at the same time. They're saying, how would you do a linear TV show?
Hey, look at this, by the way.
There you go.
We're not screwing around.
Not screwing around.
Chuck is actually doing something over there on the
something.
board.
I mean, to see it come from Caroline Cassidy and Carrie Burke from 20th Century. We had a lunch, and they were saying, "What would you do?" Because one of Caroline Cassidy, who unfortunately her family lost their home in this fire. I keep thinking about all that she's done, and just amazing that the amount of pain this has caused this business. And they move on. She had seen me in Vegas, and she said, "I had no idea." It didn't sound like a compliment. She said, "I had no idea that you had this sort of an impact on people." And I said, "Because I've been working stand-up for years, and still sell out these big venues." And she said, "I just don't know it." I said, "Well, my publicity people push other stuff. It's not about my stand-up." And so she says, "There's so many people that, in your sense of humor," and it hasn't really been. The show is partially, Home Improvement was based on my act. The first 6 episodes were my first act, my first Showtime act. And
Men Are Pigs.
Yeah.
Good stuff, 1990.
1990.
I felt terrible about myself after watching that.
I love and hate men. I grew up in a family of 7 boys and 2 girls, so it was all about men's perspective, but run by women, which is life in itself, how it is. Anyway, I told these people, if I did another one, I want to be a widower, recently widowed. And they love that because they said then we could date, in networks like that. I'm not so interested in that part of it. I love grief as it's run my life with loss and other people's loss. I'm always admired people that have lost something deep, and yet they still have a
true north.
This true north. Again, I don't understand that really, and I've fought it my whole life, and so I want to do that, and then I want to be in the car restoration business because I love construction. I did that Home Improvement. I love the outdoor equipment business, did that last minute. If I did it again, I want to be in resto rods. In this business right now where I'm not finding the new generation that into it.
Yeah.
And I'm not, and in my case, my shop is next to a dance academy. And I used to hate dance. I thought it was phony and stupid. And now like ballet and like art, I said, that's the best of mankind.
How did that happen? Like, that's really interesting to me because I got a riff on every bad thing that's ever really happened socially starts when you take the art out of it.
Yes.
Like when the vocational arts became Votech, and then blah, 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 and then shop, and then whatever. But like, when did it occur to you that maybe the art was the thing worth saving? Because
of that. When you remove that, part of it was a bad joke, perhaps, is Stalin. I was looking at the murderers in Mao Zedong. Hitler was a child compared to those two. Mao Zedong and Stalin, there was 20 million or millions and millions of people. And I don't understand that process of a human being that gets that low. And then Stalin would go, kill, I want all of them dead tomorrow and all these dead, but don't touch the ballet dancers. And somehow, it was weird to me that the Russians were so violent in their own people, and yet, the dance. And what was it about dance? And then I took my family to France, just saw Versailles, where I think King Louis invented the tap shoe and all that stuff. And I said, my niece is in the Washington Ballet, and I said, the work these people do is amazing. And I say this, and the only word I can is for nothing. They're just expressing. They're not using a tool. Their body is an expression of. I don't get it. I don't get any of the opera, any of that. But my gosh, it's these people expressing the best of creation.
It happened to me a couple years ago, weirdly in Vegas. I was probably just super tired after a long day of shooting, and I wound up at Cirque du Soleil. It was a production of Ka, and I'm just sitting there in like the 4th row, watching the body bend in ways that mine can't, in such an incredibly synchronized, beautifully choreographed work of deliberate art. And I realized, God, I'm crying like a baby. Don't know why, but that to me is art. Shameless plug. Chuck, I'm so happy that I switched to PureTalk. I struggle for the words to articulate my joy. What about you?
Delight, exuberance. I love it.
I know. Look, I don't know how excited, folks, you want to get about your wireless company. But if you've been frustrated with the big guys and if you're open to dealing with the new company, consider this. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose an iPhone 14 or a Samsung Galaxy for $0. Chuck,
Zero,
that's
Mike.
zero.
Zero.
0.0. Zilch, nada. Unlimited talk, 25 gigs of data, a mobile hotspot, all on America's most dependable 5G network at a fraction of the price of the big guys. But separate and apart from all of that, I went to Georgia, Covington. I met their CEO. Reggie McFarland is his name. He is dedicated, this guy, to supporting all kinds of veteran causes. He hooked us up with Clint Romeshay,
Oh, yeah.
who was amazing, Medal of Honor winner. They sent MicroWorks $50,000 because they wanted to support our work ethic scholarship program.
Yeah.
Look, maybe I'm biased, but I love the company, and I love the fact that they actually stand for something, and I love the fact that their whole customer service unit is USA based. I met the people who answer the call.
Yeah.
I like them a lot. PureTalk.com/Rowe. PureTalk.com/Rowe. A free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy for $0 when you switch to a qualifying plan. I'm telling you, Chuck, it's enough to make you want to burst into song.
Getting back to my show, and I said that I want it based in this, and I want the creative process. I want a contrast between the people that do resto rods. You get the guys deep into the process that we just had. I don't know if it's a word called filigree, where they etched the bumper. I'm building a really love of this project, but it's been so stressful. I'm doing a 32 Victoria or Victor, I call it, coupe. And I bought it from a guy who had it. I saw it on a auction site. It'd been in the Detroit Auto Show in the 60s, but it's been through guys' garages. But the stance of it, I always buy stuff. The stance of this thing, I said, damn, that's nice looking.
Yeah.
So I took it all apart, and then I saw King, one of the English guys, had an XKE that he put an electric motor in. And I had it all backwards. It was the inverter I was looking at. He opened the hood, and the inverter was in there. I said, damn, that's not bad looking. I love big V8s, but as I'm designing it, I said, I'm going to make an electric hot rod. Because it's really about the style of the body that I care about. So this has been about a 6-year project, because I don't know diddly crap about electric motors, and nor do most hot rodders in North Hollywood. And the guys, the EV people in Southern California, didn't know how to speak, nor did the hot rodders know how to speak to them without annoying them. It got into a name calling, and I said, guys, this is not helpful. The hot rodders need the thing to then build around it. EV guys, no, we need the plan first. We don't want you, and they were just trying to protect, and they'd start talking real slow. You don't understand the synchronicity of the inverter to the battery.
Guys love to be talked to like that, by the way.
Yeah, really. Yeah, hot
really
rodders love that.
They love that.
That little. I
Pat them on the head sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, and it's gotten to. But the art form, the guys that actually do it, now we've gotten synchronicity between the EV people, so we can make it work. The art of putting stuff together, I admire. Where you're pointed with it. Why I love ballet, and now I say I love it. I still don't get it, and it's hard to watch, except with my niece, and my daughter was in dance school.
You need a docent, right? You need somebody to say, and this is why.
This is why. This is what's important to it. But mostly now, I'm fascinated by the workload it takes to be able to do that. I didn't even know those wood shoes, whatever they're called. I didn't know that they put their foot in a wood shoe or
clogs.
Where they dance. They're not slippers. It's a thing.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's why they can spin on top. But the muscles and what it takes to do it. And why are you doing this? To express a movement of my body compared to music. And I go, I find it amazing.
When in doubt, like that's why I said weeping is fun. I don't cry much. I'm not a crier. But I think, when I see something like that is transcendent, It's Shakespearean. It's what a piece of work is, man. That's all. It's like, wow.
I spoke as I walked in here, as I've had between my philosophical studies have been real intense with a bunch of my guys that we talk philosophy. We're right back to where, and even in college, in the last, the Trieste or whatever you do, the 4-hour session, you have to give your profile, and Dilworth, that was my professor's name. It's the most depressing group of men in a room. That's like, and I'm going, were any philosophers funny? I mean, was any of these guys? There's some guys, but not Schrodinger or any of these guys or
Schrodinger's cat. Nietzsche could tell a joke.
Could some of them, but none of them actually. I think Wittgenstein. I think
Hegel.
He eventually got out of philosophy because there's no end to this. There's no. You're asking. It's
Why?
just because the question exists doesn't mean there's an answer to it.
Right.
And you get into this darkness, and then I said, this whole occurrence, I call it, this emanation, I call it, is temporary.
You're talking about life.
Life itself.
Existence.
And I just saw it in a movie, Lucy, with Scarlett Johansson, where she says we're trapped by time. There is a concept of without time, and that's where we emanated from. It doesn't exist. And then the physicist in CERN, I took my younger daughter to CERN, he says time is a construct. There is an element in the quantum level that time is irrelevant. And I said, irrelevant? And it was called spin dynamics. And I go, first off, I don't what math proves this, but that's all they're doing is slowing the spin down of a packet. That's what they call particles. They use the word particle for your head, but there's when you keep looking at it smaller and smaller, or scale, they call it, there's nothing there. It's a packet. But if they slow it down, whatever the hell that means, the antiparticle also will slow down. And if you turn the particle the other direction, the other one does the opposite direction. It's antiparticle. I said, well, that's not, I guess I can understand that, no matter how far away the other one is. And I said, that's exactly the noise I meant. Well, what does that mean, like a couple miles? No, sometimes the antiparticle is several billion light years from here. And I said, first off, how do you know that? Oh, and they'd show me a blackboard.
Yeah, with squiggles on it.
Oh, that says
It's obvious,
that.
don't you think?
So there's an element at the micro level, and he even said it's not even a level. We don't call it, because I said, how many miles small is a boson, Higgs boson? He goes, it's not miles. At that point, we call it scale. But we're at 0, let's say, and plus 24 is the event horizon, minus 23 zeros is a Higgs boson, they think.
Yeah.
And I said, how do you know that? And what a weird world it is at the quantum level that time is irrelevant. It doesn't exist. So then I'm starting to think, is consciousness, as human consciousness is without time. Just did it this morning. I'm conscious of a dream that a lot of things happened. I was on a motorcade. I did something, and we went and ate, and it was 8:08 when the kids went to school, and I was still in bed. My wife took them to school, and I said, it was 8:08, and all of a sudden, it was 8:14, and I had a day trip.
Yeah.
So wherever that world is, I'm experiencing consciousness in a dream. It is a dream. However, time was irrelevant. It was very manipulatable.
Just so I understand, we're talking about the events of this morning.
Yes.
And you got up and you went to some philosophy group where you sat down with friends who were fellow...
No, I work out what I'm talking about. I've got 2 other guys that don't like this whole thing. I've got...
What do you mean, don't like what whole thing?
Is this determined or is it free will? This is the oldest conversation ever. Schrodinger's cats, that whole thing.
Yep.
At the quantum level, it appears to be both at the same time, at the same moment. The slit experiment with light, it's particles and it's a wave. And if it's a wave, it's predetermined that light knows where to go. We did it on Last Man Standing because it was in the movie Arrival, where the aliens didn't understand anything that woman was saying. And she says, I got 30%. We just have no background. But they did, boil? When you stick a pencil in water, it bends. No matter what water, no matter what pencil, no matter what time of day, the light immediately goes the fastest direction. Never been in that water, but it always goes the fastest direction. The formation of thought is that light has already been everywhere. It's timeless. And so the aliens in that movie said, yeah, we understand that. And that was this thing about...
That was Jodie Foster, right?
Yes.
Arrival?
No. Amy Adams, I think.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes. And so in my brother, in the philosophy guy said, no, but I can make a decision. I have free will. I said, it does appear that way. They said, why do you say it like that? He says, because I can't. I went and edited a film once in college, and the best-looking girl in school finally responded to me. I was a geeky kid with zits and half into the weightlifting thing with the football team and half with the geeks, and I loved industrial arts, so I was all over the school. But this girl, I made friends with her mother, is what you do when you want to get her mother. He is such a kind boy. I would go to their house and help clean up stuff. And at one point she got, why don't you come over tonight? And I went, I can't believe it. I'll be over there after I edit this film. And if you've ever edited a film, pretty soon I'm done. Oh God, it's 3 a.m. And she's pissed because I never showed up. And I've always wondered what would happen had I not edited that film and gone to her house.
Sliding doors.
And I told my buddies, it's impossible. Metaphorically, there's no way I can't go back and do it. Then it would be going back and it'd be doing it a different way.
Sure.
And I said, so there is a potential that it is both. Now there's an old, I believe it's mystical Judaism. I think it was a Kabbalah thing I'd read. Guy goes out of an office building. There's a homeless guy sitting on the side. The first go around, guy goes out, ignores him. I don't want to deal with homeless people. I've got my own life. And he walks out, and there's a pillar, a light post, and there's a doctor between him and the light post across the street. He walks out, gets hit by a car. Because the pillar was there, the doctor didn't see any of it. He walked around the corner. And he gets hit, not gravely injured. Second guy goes out and at least looks at the guy and says hello. It says, I don't, but he pauses a minute. Mm-hmm. This time the doctor now can see all this, hears the noise, comes across, and helps him. Third guy goes out and helps the guy, misses all the drama. And he said, so those three choices could exist temporally in different worlds. That we have every decision you make, free will is another world. And deja vu is when one crosses the other one. You come back and go, I've been here, I've done this before. If you go, this is a mystical religious idea. If you go by the will of the emanation, where the emanation comes from is kindness. Love conquers all. Mm-hmm. Love might be and consciousness might be eternal. They don't have any time frame to them. And if you go with what they try to say in religion, help somebody. Be there, extend yourself. Then that will, you go by that will and the things will go better for you.
Are we talking about this because of the fires, you think?
No, man, I don't know. I've been doing this I've been a religious kid because I was forced to as a kid, and then spent some time incarcerated, so I had to search, why is this? It wasn't even just me. Why do horrible things happen to good people? What is that all about?
That's the essential question.
I just don't know that. And then I was given a little message, and it's actually the book of Job, which cut to, I don't even know where that's from. And this has been a year, almost a little over a year. I read the Aramaic, French, Latin, and Greek versions of the Old Testament, page by page. I put it down if I drift. And I got all the way through the Old Testament. I'm 4 pages into the New Testament as of this morning. Reading it as a scientist is what 2 guys told me, a priest and a rabbi. EXE, let the words come to you. Do not look for meaning. It will come to you. And all of that it's been life-changing. I mean, I can't believe it's not what I thought it was. Mm-hmm. The Bible is not what I thought it was. It's very little preachy stuff. It's stories you'll derive. It's mostly the Torah is about law.
Consequence.
Yeah, law and consequence and all this. And the book of Job is the one that affected me most. And even in this version, they're not sure where that was even written. It might have been written way before the Old Testament. This whole story about a guy who asked the emanation, "Why are you so mean to me?" And I said this one time in a prison, I was doing a shop thing I was cleaning up, and I said, so I saw some of the meanest people that were treated well and some of the nicest people treated horribly. I just never got that. And I got this kind of wind. I said, listen, you keep asking me this question, I'm going to tell you, and I guarantee you're not going to like the answer. And that was Job. And it was a reminder of a short story I'd done. Magician, when I was on the road early and doing comedy, we'd open for magicians or strippers. I actually prefer magicians because it was more fun to watch. After a while, you watch strippers, it's like working in a chocolate factory. You're just kind of bored with chocolate. I get it. You got the boobs bouncing. I got it. Bump, with the pole and all that. But magicians.
But a good trick.
A good trick. What is that? And I asked Mark Kornhauser, the magician, I said, he would rip a newspaper and do all these pieces, and then he goes, and it's all back together. And God, that's magic. He's really a magician. So I'd ask him, can you show me how you do that? He goes, no. But it was so direct.
Yeah.
Come on, I'll pay you. No, I'm not paying you. I'm not showing you a magic trick. It's the same line. He goes, if I showed you, several things are going to happen. You're going to go, that's stupid. And then magic will no longer mean the same to you. And that story kept back with the story of Job. If you ask the emanation why this is like it is, first off, you're gonna go, what? You won't understand anything. And in that book of Job, one variation, the emanation very rarely talks to humans because it's like speaking to an ant. You can't understand anything it says. And it said, listen, do you understand why the waves stop at the shore? Probably not. Do you understand why birds fly at a certain time of day but not others? No. Part of this planet is frozen solid like it. Do you know the stars all move in the same direction? Do you know any of that? You weren't here when I started it. You weren't here when I created this. You weren't here for any of this. And this is the first question you want to know is, why did you do this? Mm-hmm. I'm so angry. I want to split you into little pieces. But my anger is mitigated by my amazement that you do that. That's the thing about man. There's something about Job I liked, that whole story, that as dumb as we are, we do ask some amazing...
Stubborn son of a gun.
We are stubborn son of a gun, and we add, why is this and how can I help? If you add that to that.
Why is this and how can I help?
Why is it and how can I help?
I think the magic thing is super interesting, both in the context of your career and your philosophy, and in everything you're saying, because, like, I went down deep a YouTube rabbit hole the other day. Have you seen, I think it's Card Tricks by Jason, Chuck, the stuff I send you?
Oh, yeah. Love that.
This guy, if you haven't seen him, Tim, I'll send you a link. It's Card Tricks. It's sleight of hand.
Yes.
But it's so good.
So good.
Right. And so, but the context, like, he is a master of legerdemain. It's just like the Cirque du Soleil. It's just like the art we're talking about. He's human, and he's doing a thing that you can't do. But forget the context and imagine having that skill throughout the long history of time, and imagine being able to show somebody a thing, not in the context of a magician, but of a fire bringer, a god, right? And wow, what choice do we have as mere mortals when confronted with something so outside our bounds of imitation or comprehension, that to accept that, yeah, this is a superior being, or this is a different kind of being? They're not. They can just do a thing we can't do. But if it's not for the magician construct, we're not capable of thinking about it in that way.
Shameless plug.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Chuck Klausmeyer with his very best impersonation of Brad Pitt from that unforgettable film, Seven. Go.
What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box?
An excellent question. What's in the box is the latest work of art from my friend Josh Smith over at the Montana Knife Company. Josh is one of those entrepreneurs, stubborn son of a gun, determined to make the very best American-made product that he can. He also happens to be one of the premier bladesmiths in the country. He donated 200 custom-made MicroWorks knives. A few months ago, we raised $70,000 like that for the Work Ethic Scholarship Program. So what Josh did is he went off and he decided to make the ultimate blue-collar working person's knife. And this is it. It's called the Rocker. And you can see it in action over at montanaknifecompany.com. The headline is simple. Josh is a former lineman, and he wanted to make a blade that was super easy to access, that you could clip on your suspenders or on your belt. This is great for electricians and plumbers and pipe fitters and miners and really anybody who needs a super versatile, indestructible, multi-purpose utility blade within easy reach. Best of all, Chuck, are you sitting down? Sure looks like you are.
Sure.
Josh is donating 10% of gross sales from the Rocker back to MicroWorks, not for this month or even for this year, but forever, in perpetuity.
That means forever.
That's exactly what it means. Yeah. We've gotten a lot of support from companies who are making stuff in the USA. If more of them approach fundraising like this, never mind the $2.5 million we're going to give away this month, we'll be able to give away $25 million. We'll be able to close the frickin' skills gap with the Rocker. MontanaKnifeCompany.com to answer the age-old question,
What's in the box?
We all are created equal. We are not. I've had naturals in my life. Where did you get that ability? Where did that come from? Why is that different from the dancers that are the best of the best? I have my agent is a Stanford got a scholarship for golf. Within 3 weeks of being at Stanford, he realized he's never going to be golfing like the guys that he's golfing with.
Yeah.
I was a race driver for Ford on Trans Am for about 6 years, and I took a whole bunch of big movie producers out to Willow Springs here to just goof around and with some of my race cars. And I took some famous director, and two of them were so slow that the guy said, I think we're going to put you in a kid's car. And they weren't being joking. And the guy was such a formidable director. He went, I would like that. He wants to go. And the other guy who's directed big films, never been in a race car. He was 2 seconds faster than me immediately. Never been in a race car. It's so humiliating to see a guy has a natural ability. People that paint or fix or that I find that formidable about in what is their vent to the source. I've often said humbly, when I'm killing in a big audience, this is not coming from me.
Yeah.
I'm working it, I'm riding this, but I don't know what political religious persuasion I really am. Because the more I look at the emanator, I tag it, I make names, and then I go through these whole things. It's in a big chair, and it's got a beard for some reason. It looks like Father Time. If it doesn't have a beard, you have no idea, I keep saying as though it's saying to me, you have no idea how big I am.
Right.
And how insignificant you are, and yet you have a capacity to go, yeah, I think I get it.
Right.
I'm bigger than big. I'm past big. I invented big. I invented everything. You will sit there and go, all right, I think I got it.
It's like infinity. It's
Yes.
like, well, here's what it is. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I got it.
I
It's
got
like,
it.
No, actually, you don't.
You don't got it.
You don't have it.
And then you'll step back from there and go, oh, I get it. I don't have it.
Yeah, I got it once. I was talking to you earlier about this show, How the Universe Works, which I've been narrating forever. And like every episode, both is a reminder that nobody's getting out of this alive, and
we got to go back to that.
and,
Okay, thanks a lot. I'm going to go have a hamburger because why not?
We don't. We're trapped by the language. We only know what we think things mean based on our understandings of the words we think we know, and so if you think there's life on other planets, then you have to be prepared to accept that there is life on an infinite number of planets, because in an infinite universe there is infinite life by definition. And so it's really interesting when people are making an argument for, well, yeah, look, the universe is so big that there has to be life somewhere else. It'd be crazy if it was just this. So at least one other place. But it's like, no. If your argument is it's got to be at least in one other place because it's infinite, then ipso facto, there has to be life in an infinite number of other places, because that's what infinite means. Infinite can't catch up to infinite, ever.
They again, this is CERN. The guy. Now, this is my other group of physicists that are working. I can't remember what they're doing now. They're all working in New York on something. I can't remember what it is.
Sidebar. My other group of physicists.
Well, some of these guys.
What's really happening with you? I don't understand.
There's some guys I met when I went to CERN, and then there's some guys that I met because of that are doing stuff that happen to have physics backgrounds. And I said, so they all will reach out at certain times, and then a lot of doctors I know are kind of physics heads. Like we're all thinking about why are we not figuring out breast cancer in women? It's like there's a whole bunch of us going. I need physicists and working men to think about it. Take it outside of the people. I can't stand that this many women are suffering from this. Mothers, family, friends, and then why are we not focusing on that? What's the lack of focus on that in what I said? You got to bring in sometimes my mechanics if they looked at the problem. Mm-hmm. And I've done this to my doctors many times. Is what if another guy looked at what you're looking at? Would they come up with another solution? It's another version of eyes. What's today's? I think I told you the harvest is great, but there's not enough farmers,
workers.
Yeah, there's not in there's sheep or there's
sheep and shepherds.
Sheep and shepherds, and I said, I'm missing that problem solvers, which is what I've been such a fan of yours, because that's where your head is. Dirty jobs. I loved how you looked at things. Because you got a sense of humor and you're self-effacing. That's the character stuff. That's wonderful. The fact that you're the type of guy that gives credit to these people that fix stuff, and these are the people that don't need any credit. That's the weird thing. I went to a Medal of Honor dinner. It was 5, I believe, surviving Medal of Honor winners and 2 Victoria Cross guys. And my youngest daughter, my wife, and I, you're speechless at the thought process of these guys. Well, I'm not going to leave the guys there to get killed.
Right.
But you don't know how to fly a helicopter. Now I figured it out. I took it back in there, and he took it back in Vietnam on a hill, if I got it right, that was compromised by a Viet Cong had gotten involved in the radio operator, and they had ratted him out. So the Viet Cong surrounded him with, I think, 14,000 or 5,000 troops. They had 1,200 on top of the hill. He said we had position, but because they were so close, artillery couldn't help us. So we were getting surrounded. And so we were flying people in and out. I got shot 5 times, but the helicopter pilot got hurt. And I said, I'm not leaving these guys there. And I go, I would run screaming like a hyena. And you went, oh boy, I wonder how these work. And so you're going to pull this, and then the Trump, and he figured it out, went back and saved numerous guys. And I saw these different guys that fix shit, fix stuff, look, and I guess, who are these? How do I become better at it? How do I motivate other people? So many mechanics in my group that I like this. An Armenian guy in North Hollywood. The car will come in, and he just stands there going like this. It's not where you think. He calls it transference. Generally, where the noise isn't what the problem is. It's something on the other side of the car is doing this, and it's causing it to do this. And that guy is so freaking good at
It's like Dr. House.
Yeah.
It's like you're diagnosing a sick person.
Right.
Same chip.
Yeah, look, what happened 2 weeks prior to this? What? What does that have to do with it? And my physician, who I love that, sometimes we talk in the examination room for my physical, and I'd walk out and I go, did I get a physical? He goes, I think we forgot. Because we're both talking about our last one that we both got off track and got into another surgeon that he got me with. Do viruses speak to each other? That was after COVID. And he said, no. The virologist said that's not possible. And I said, well, what's a mutation? What motivates a mutation? Nothing. It mutates. I know, but it was moving in a direction, let's say, and then it mutated at one point. So it decided to go left instead of straight. It mutated because he said it mutates generally because the cell figures out that's not friendly. And they have this handshake, some genetic handshake. He goes, yeah, it's called some word. But bacteria will know because they fight viruses all the time. He goes, yeah, they don't like each other. Well, it's using human terms. But it knocks on the cell wall, and the virus can figure out how to get in there and manipulate it. They're not parasitic in a way. They're not, they don't, like alien, they don't turn it in. I don't know what they actually do. They're not living like bacteria. Bacteria actually eat and poop.
Right.
But they get into the bacteria, and within a short period of time, the bacteria, before it dies, is able to send a chemical signal to all other bacteria that they've been compromised. So bacteria will change their coding.
Sure.
And he says, yeah.
Like evolutionary biology.
However, the virus then knows it's been compromised. He goes, oh, God. And he started to go, yeah. So the virus then tells other viruses that we got to come up with another signal. And he goes, let me get back to you. He comes back a couple of days later, goes, this is not new thought. He goes, it's new for me as a virologist. I didn't know that they're actually beginning to think, I think, what is it? It's called virus. It's Lynn Margolis. I hope I got the right book. It's about that. Yeah. That viruses may speak, communicate on a wavelength we don't even understand. They do. Maybe it's a hive mentality, but why do they mutate? It's not chance. They're not working, so it changes its direction. That means it was aware in a weird sense that something happened. So I bring it up to the philosophy part of people, the problem-solving thing. That's philosophy. You just wonder why this happens. The problem with philosophy with me is that you get to literally some guys, like I think it was Wittgenstein, it was a linguist philosopher, he says, I don't know that you visually are understanding anything that I say.
Right.
I don't know in your head, when I say orange, if I was in your head, I go, what are you looking at? That's a monkey's ass. See, that's not an orange.
It could be an orange monkey's ass. I mean,
well, baboons definitely have that weird ass shape, whatever that's all about.
But it's the, sticking with philosophers, it's Kierkegaard, right? It's the unexamined life.
Yes.
Is not worth living. And sitting here with you now, man, it's clear. I mean, I don't know how long you've been this curious a cat, to bring Schrodinger back into it, but you
Which
seem
was a joke, by the way.
You seem to be really, really kind of centered around something other than comedy. Is it curiosity? Is it?
Not even generally. My father was killed by a drunk driver when I was 11 years old. I realized it at a neighbor's house. When University of Colorado football game, he took all my other brothers and a bunch of carload of kids. Luckily, he was the only one killed, but he died in my mother's lap. My other two brothers were thrown around the car. A lot of kids were hurt. He wasn't. And then I'm walking down to my house, knowing something terrible had happened, even though I didn't do it. I'm praying, weeping. I said, I will eat vegetables, whatever it is a kid. Just whatever is going on, this is terrible. I will, do my homework or what. I was walking down, and none of that happened. I get to the house, there's police, and my uncle was there, said, man up. Your mom needs you right now, so no crying, none of that.
How old are you at this point?
11. And I walked there, and the whole time I'm going, literally as a boy for your dad. He was a great dad. Love of my life. I said, this doesn't make any sense. I don't like this. And everybody's answer was, and he was a funny guy. And everybody, as I look back, did the best they could. The priest said he's in a better place. My first reaction was, then why are we in this shithole? Why are we just start there? And it never got answered. He was carrying a bourbon around. I don't know. But he never had the right answer. Even, I don't think he knows. Why is this? What's this? And then that never stopped. The pain of it never stopped. The discomfort of it, I took for many years. I didn't care. This is meaningless because at any point, like the aliens in that movie Arrival, Ted Chiang, I think, wrote the book. I know he did. Wrote a series of books about that. If the aliens live their lives knowing the end of their life, they know that I'm going to die in this time.
Yeah.
And to the humans, that's terrifying to know that.
It would change everything.
To the aliens' point of view, how do you live not knowing 1 minute to the next if you're going to live? They were terrified of us. How do you deal with that? And this is what I kept thinking too.
So we were terrified by the certainty of knowing when our death is.
And they're terrified
by the uncertainty of not knowing.
Yeah, and all of a sudden I said, you know what? I kind of see where you're going with that. And I said, I don't think either one's good. It is that I asked Amy Adams at a premiere of it, because in the story she let her daughter. In the book, it's tremendous because they weave all these stories in where she had a 21-year-old daughter, and you're watching. She can't have a 21-year-old daughter. She's a young scientist, and you really realize that she's starting to see her future. Mm-hmm. The more she spends time with these aliens, and her daughter dies. In the book, about 22 fall in a hiking accident in Tibet, and I asked her, "So you know the future, and your daughter's going to die. Would you have that daughter? Would you?" And she said, it was worth the love I had for her while she was here. And I said, it's inherently, my view, it's inherently selfish.
Right.
So why not just conceive the girl 2 seconds later, or don't have sex that night with that husband?
Yeah, you get a different girl.
You do get a different girl, so you do lose her. But you lose her in a different way. Now you don't know how she's going to die. And that whole thing of knowing that.
And she never had the 20 years.
Yeah.
At all.
So I get where she's coming from. So if you know the outcome, would you still do it? Know that they suffered at the end, but you had the 20 years. It's a real quandary about. And again, this is a philosophical guy that said the universe isn't expanding. The physicists I talked to said it's just getting more complex. We call it expanding because it makes sense to you people. I mean, it's easier to understand.
Yeah.
It's not growing. It's just we're learning more about it. It gets more and more complex as we learn about it. And I said that whole process started me on asking questions, generally getting no answers. That said, shop teachers always had an answer.
Shameless plug.
Chuck, have you seen me in the most honest commercials ever recorded in the history of television?
Yes, those are the ones for Groundworks, right?
And there it is right now. I've been hearing from a lot of people. Apparently, these are running all over the country. And I'm delighted because Groundworks is awesome. This is a company that you want to call if you have a foundation problem, or if you have a crawl space that needs to be encapsulated, or if you've got water damage. I met him a couple years ago in Virginia Beach when the owner, a guy named Matt Malone, turned all of the workers into owners. It was a huge day.
Yeah.
And I've just been such a fan of this company ever since. So we got together, we made these commercials, and if you see them on TV, just know that they're completely unscripted. We shot it like an episode of Dirty Jobs. Those are real employees of Groundworks who are now owners of the company. And dude, they kicked my butt all day.
I was gonna say you called me that day and you were like, "Man, this is like I haven't done this in a long time."
It hurt.
Yeah,
but
you paid for it.
I did, but I'm so glad to be associated with this company. They're doing amazing work, And really, the whole purpose of this commercial is just to encourage you to get a free inspection. There's so much damage that's been caused over the years by water. There are so many foundations that are literally crumbling. When you go down and see these things with your own eyes, it's horrifying. This is people. It's your biggest investment, and in so many cases, it's like rotting out from under you. I met the people whose homes have been saved by these guys. The stories are great. Groundworks.com.
If mold and mildew's in your face,
Yeah, get that water back into its place at Groundworks.
Right. Put your hands down. Stop asking. Figure it out. That's all you can do. And I used to love that about shop teachers. I used to love that. It's that's great. All right. So just put this, it's worthless. Engaging.
Well, it's worthless without this, and this is really worthless without that.
Yes.
It's two sides of the same coin, and that's where I reckon we're out of whack. And that's why I do what I do. I'm just trying to get some equilibrium back in the world where the reverence that you clearly feel for people who are capable of flying a helicopter who weren't trained to fly one. You know, I'm gobsmacked by that as well. But that's adjacent to, you know, putting up drywall that's perfectly plumbed.
Exactly.
And laying pipe that's perfectly laid, if you will, and so forth. Like there's majesty. I mean, I talked to a Medal of Honor winner as well not long ago, and it's the same thing, man. Like there's a weird obviousness with which they respond to questions that we don't think are obvious at all. Well, clearly, I'm not going to leave the guys behind. So
when the guy, one of the SEALs, they're shooting in Afghanistan. When they got, I love military strategy. I was a strategy guy. It was all supply lines to me. The most boring part of it is, where are they getting the tires?
Quartermasters.
Where are they getting ball bearings? And that was, I opened that up, and my admiral friends in the Navy said, we learned that early in the war. We started bombing German factories. They had no ball bearings, and they tended to use stuff that was very maintenance heavy.
Excuse me, but if you're keeping track, he's got the admiral friends, he's got the physicist friends, right? He's got the doctor friends. These people exist in small groups that are unknown to us.
Just a random.
This is so, dude. It's so interesting. What are you? 71?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so you're 11 and your dad dies in your mom's lap, and you come face to face with the uncertainty of the universe, and then
the meanness of it,
the arbitrary
meanness,
capriciousness of it.
Because it says and that literally the emanation is saying you don't understand.
You don't understand anything.
You don't understand. You will understand pain, but you're going to need. I think it's like I love knife sharpening. I just love it. I've always been fascinated by knives, and I've gone to 3 different companies. I went to a butcher. They're a fishery, and they were slicing up fish. I hate fishing, but I love. They were slicing up. I go, but to cut through fish skin and the fish so it goes like butter. I go, where are you getting these knives? He said,
Stop. Why do you have to interrupt your story to tell me you hate fish?
Well, I'm not a fisherman. I don't. Just the whole thing. I'm not. I eat them. I like them in a kind of.
You don't dream of fish.
No, and I have so many fisherman friends. They just love the fish.
Your fisherman group. Adjacent
well,
to the admirals.
I have the outdoor group I love that go hunting and they fish. And I used to sell Orvis rods at this outdoor shop. I learned how to fly fish. You'd have to demonstrate.
Yeah.
And so I knew how to do it. I knew how to shoot guns and binoculars and all that. But I don't like this. However, the knife sharpening. In order to sharpen a knife, you have to hurt the knife.
Yeah.
The best, and if you keep it honed, you can extend it without, if you will, causing pain. But once the knife gets dull, honing a knife, the first thing is it's a rough stone, and it takes off a little bit of the. I mean, microscopically, if I got it right, the good blades just bend microscopically, and you want to bring it back up. If it bends too far, you have to get a new edge, and that's life. In a sense, is honing. There's going to be some pain in it. Eventually, you will cut through this thing.
You'll appreciate this. A couple months ago, a guy sat right there named Josh Smith. Josh runs the Montana Knife Company. I don't know of a better bladesmith in the country right now. He's incredible, a true artist. Everything we've been talking about, this guy personifies. His knives aren't cheap, and he started offering a lifetime guarantee on his knives, and he offered to sharpen the knife for his customers for the lifetime of the knife, or his lifetime. And I'm like, that just seems like an awful lot of maintenance after the sale.
But no one does it.
And he says, no one does it. And here's the thing, man. No one does it right.
Right.
And I didn't think to ask him about it in the conversation. I wish I would have. Because part of me feels like if we have the facility and the wherewithal to buy a knife, but we don't have the capacity to care for it properly, maybe we shouldn't own it. But this guy's in the knife selling business. So it's like, well, no, that's not really going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sharpen it for you. And then that makes me think about all the other ways well-intended makers of things, right? We can't really trust the consumer to fix that blender, because you're just too freaking stupid. You don't have the patience or the intellectual curiosity or bandwidth. So we're just going to make it out of one piece of extruded plastic. And it works until somebody like you comes along who's like, no, that actually offends me, because you're still clinging to the uncertain universe where you get to put your hands on a thing and make it better. And that's the war we're in right now. Those are the two different types of people walking around. They want their knives sharpened for them, or they want to do it themselves.
Well, I just read this. If you were to go back in time, could you help them at all? And that is nothing. If I went back 100 years, I would say, we have these things, they're phones. We have a machine, no, that's a freaking blender. And so there's really nothing I could help them in. And in reverse, if you got someone from way back, 200 years ago, the only thing they'd recognize here is a fruit market and a cobbler. And there aren't any cobblers left. I cannot find, other than rare here in Los Angeles, someone that will fix a shoe, because everybody wears tennis shoes now. Mm-hmm. And I have some leather shoes, and I had a brand of Sidewalk. It's a group, they hand make shoes in Sherman Oaks. And you can't, even in Mexico, I have home in Mexico, and I think they look at it and they go, we can't fix this. You just buy another one. I said, I'm now stubborn about that. I don't want to buy another one. What would it take to fix this? What would it take to fix? Boy, the blender started me on my washer dryer. I said, but the washer dryer is a motor. We used to do this as kids. They used to leave them on the sidewalk. And a buddy of mine, Mick Hersley, he'd go, there's only one, the armature, it's got two, the early ones were just, it electric motor and it runs a tumbler, but it's like 2-ball bearings that go. Yeah. And then it starts wobbling, and then it starts making that noise. As you pull that out, put a bearing in, put it back in, there's not much to go wrong with the washer. Yeah. And he said, so we do that, so we had one in our house, and it was doing that. The guy said, yeah, it's going to go. I said, this isn't that old. You're in the warranty? And I didn't know that I was, so I said I wasn't. He goes, yeah, it's just cheaper to replace it. Cheaper to replace it. King, king, king. This is all metal. The drum is metal. This is metal. What are we replacing? And it's that digital dashboard. Yeah. And I said, so we took it apart, went to the shop, and it's a circuit board. And it used to be the circuit boards were all in the back were little welds, not welds, but solders. Yeah. You solder two things together. Now that's all internalized. They don't let you repair it, because generally what's wrong with that wash machine is that circuit board, one of those solders broke and it's dead, or it won't dry, or it won't do the cycle. And said, so this whole thing is useless. All the work, all the people that made it is worthless because of a little solder joint, and you don't want to fix it. And he goes, it's just cheaper, sir. We'll just get you another one. And then I came up with, I found I do have the warranty. He goes, yeah, I'll fix it then. Because it's if you at that point made Lowe's or whoever did it, if they have to replace it, they will fix that circuit board. But I don't even know if they make the circuit boards replaceable anymore. I don't think the company that makes them, I don't think they.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my metaphor, man. We all want a knife and we don't know how to sharpen them.
Yeah, but we're like what you said, but I'm uncomfortable with where it's headed. I go to change my life. I took Richard Karn and I did for the History Channel, how break things. I don't know what we called it. It was a great show. Went to DWP, which I've always disliked. I don't know why I've disliked them because it never seems like they do their job.
Department of Water and Power?
Yeah, I go down there, completely turned me around. How hard these guys work.
Yeah.
The people, not the guys on the dais that telling why, well, the water system doesn't work in Los Angeles. That guy probably has never worked on it. It's much more complex how they get the water to us. It's much more complex about the maintenance. And the vision for it is different than the guys, the men and women that were down there working. I said, we're not making a generation of people that find this admirable.
Yeah.
We can't live without these people. You can't live with them. They were making the trusses that were the high voltage wires. Of course, I'm going, why do they look so ugly? Because in Sweden they make them look like dinosaurs or branches. He goes, we don't have that. That's the functional. That's what it looks like functionally with the bolts standing that kind of rusted. You see the high tension. The United States doesn't. We don't. There's not a designer who goes, you could make a bend.
Where's the form?
Yeah.
It's just function.
Well,
function.
They just don't do it. But the guy was on a, God, I got the name probably wrong. It used to be Heidelberg with these presses. It's a press that makes the parts that make the press that make the press that make the press. It's a turning wheel that's is making the case that holds the bearing for the armature at the dam.
Yeah.
It is such a huge machine. And I go, God, that's beautiful. And he goes, it's 1939. They do not make them better. There's nothing wrong with that machine. You buy those big turning wheels or presses. They made them in 39 and they don't make them any better and they don't repair them. And the pieces, the guy was 68 years old, fit. He goes, every day I finish something. Every day I advance DWP's ability to do what we do. And everybody in this place is all alert. And I used to work at turret lathe. Hated it because it's repetitive. I don't know. This they fix one thing at a time. And when they do those turning wheels, that has to be so precise because it goes into a sleeve and then a bearing the size of a ranch goes in there. And then the armature goes in there. This Castaic Lake Dam, when I saw, who makes this stuff? Who are the people that make that armature that goes in it? That has to be, it can't wobble.
I'll tell you, I don't know about the armature, but the ball bearings that you keep mentioning, I was in business a couple years ago with Federal Mogul, who owns everybody from Anco to Champion, Spark
Is that Detroit?
Plugs.
Is Federal Mogul?
They're out, well, it's Carl Icahn now, and they're everywhere. Federal Mogul, if you look at all the brands they own, you start to understand the totality of the automotive supply chain.
Yes.
And just how vast. It's like it's its own universe. One of the many companies in that universe is called Moog. M-O-O-G.
Yeah.
They're down in Boaz, Alabama. And they invited me down there probably 6 years ago to celebrate their 100th anniversary. And Tim, it's enormous. All they make are ball bearings. Big ones, little ones, medium size, little bigger than medium.
Nothing in this country runs without ball bearings.
It's all ball bearings. It's in a town most people can't find on a map. They've been at it 100 years, right? And the pride in this factory it was like watching that Cirque du Soleil thing in a different way. It was just watching people so focused on one part of their job and the number of jobs required to get a perfectly round stainless steel ball bearing to spec. It's only everything, right?
Right.
And nobody knows about it.
That's how I felt. I left the DWP completely a fan of that Water and Power. I'm just, what they do, they're not the leaders. And it's like the Medal of Honor guy says, well, you should be a leader. He goes, nah, I don't want to do that. I don't. I like to be told. He didn't say it like this. I do what I'm told, and I do that very well. And I said, but I'm not, because we're just missing the leadership. I don't find leadership where a guy was like you, because I remember my uncle worked for Ford Tractor when Ford used to make tractors, and he was a line, I don't want a line foreman, but he was actually, he'd step in now and then. He was hands-on, and eventually he got so good they moved him, and he said that was the death of him. They moved him into a white collar upstairs, and he was away from the factory. And that transition from the people that do the stuff, I think of in the military, think of more corporals, sergeants, lieutenants, and captains, maybe captains.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that the captain goes into battle.
Typically, no.
I think that's when it ends, and you don't want your best guy in battle. You kind of want him telling the other guys. But that transition is where I find a vacancy right now, both in sometimes studio, creative, all the I call them the guys that get shit done. In my business, a line producer.
Yeah.
In Vegas, I got to give it to Pit Boss.
It's a pit boss
Pit
all
boss,
day long.
Pit bosses, I always said they should have a pit boss in D.C. So he just walks around the Congress and he taps a guy on the shoulder. Step away, step away. And then another congressman sits down. But he doesn't say anything bad about what he does. He goes,
Yeah.
come on. Stop for a minute. Got to go outside. Get the congressman from Tennessee. Sit there. There you go. And we're going to do this.
But don't you see how like similar that is to when we started this conversation? Like the Armenian you were describing, the diagnostic guy who just walks in and just kind of looks at the, yeah, no, okay,
Right.
They're assessors.
Assessors. But he's done the other part of it, and like you gave me credit, and I said when I raced, I still think I'm good at it, and I don't take credit for it because it isn't me. Even in the race car, I'd go, I think we got brakes in a bias problem in the left rear, and he goes, I don't think so, and I said, I'm generally right, and I have a big car collection, and I'll drive them, and we have two mechanics, so we're using my car collection now in shifting gears, which is amazing because now that circles around too. When they were writing it, they go, "We'll have the guy come in and it'll be smoke." And I go, "Man, if it's smoking, it ain't going to be in the shop. It would be outside." Well, we want it in the shop to get the gag. I said, "I get that. Not going to happen." He wouldn't drive it in if it's broken.
But that's what I meant before when I was trying
Yes.
to compliment you. It's like the writers are looking for a moment, a scene, but you're bringing something.
If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. I get it.
That's annoying
Yes.
in your industry. You're probably very annoying to a lot of people.
Oh, you don't know.
I think I might. I think I might.
Yeah.
But look, this is like the point I'm trying to make is whether I go to Boaz, Alabama, and spend a day filming these people who nobody's ever paid any attention to before, to do something nice about the business of making ball bearings, or whether you're like you keep doing the same kind of show, like you change the title every few years. And that's what I've been doing. It's a dirty job. Somebody's got to do it. Returning the favor. It's all, hey, man, get a load of this guy.
I know.
Doing this thing in real life. You're doing the same thing with scripts. It's so, I didn't realize it until I met you, actually, and until we worked together. And since then, I've been watching you a lot. And you're tortured. You're a jagged little pill. You ask these big questions, and you're still pushing the rock up the hill, making sitcoms that actually have something really at their core that's pretty great.
Well, I appreciate that, and I said there's something authentic about having an audience. It's like doing theater, doing a movie in a live audience. And even the older guys, this last week we finished our 6th episode for this first season, and the guy says, "Isn't this amazing?" And this is the line producer. Yeah, there's live people laughing at what we're doing over here, and we're both standing there. It was a scene that I wasn't in. I said, "This is why I love doing this." And I said that the gravity of a studio, and I love the new brass at Disney ABC and 20th, which is a big business.
Walden?
There's so many of them. There's so many involved in the decision, and you don't have. Unfortunately, I look back at some of the pioneers. We just talked about this last night. A lot of the pioneers were flawed people.
Sure.
And we don't want flawed people working, so we've done this thing where you take the flaws out of people, so everybody has got this check boxes. They've got the right education, the right look, the right sensibility, but they don't have that. Like some of the major players, will not mention names out of respect for their families. They were just decisively unattractive people, but they did the job well. These are big guys.
Yeah.
That worked in the industry, and they had vision. I was looking at wonder where did the Ford Mustang come from? Lee Iacocca. I'm not sure it was Lee Iacocca. He was probably and I knew him, and he was head of the department of Ford, but it was a guy in Ford that said, "What if we took the Ford Falcon and did this to it?" I don't know, because I don't know. Bill Collins was a friend of mine from northern Michigan, and he was involved in the GTO. Now he didn't get the Pontiac GTO, if I'm not being clear enough. And DeLorean took credit for that, because it was DeLorean's point of view. It probably was, you got a guy, I hope his name is right, Tim Kaczynski, hope I did it right, for Dodge, who'd made the Dodge, all the big...
Not the Unabomber.
No. Could have been.
What?
He did get out of
What
jail.
an unfortunate moniker.
Well, no. Oh, God, I hope I got his name right. But he was the head of Dodge. I think he's moved on. He did the Demons and all.
Yeah.
He was the kind of guy that said, I wonder what would happen if we put a 900 horsepower V8 into that car. And there'd be most people go, why would you do that? That'd be horrible. It's gas and everything else. I just wonder what would happen. I did this to... years ago, I got the opportunity to build I have a lake home, and once I started making enough money, I've been through boats, a 14-foot boat. Don't like fishing, but I like going fast on the water. 28-foot, then I got a 34-foot. Now I wanted one that I could do like an RV, so you have to get 3 cabins in it. So it was a 60-foot boat. Still have it. Went to Italy to buy it, and I'm in there going... The only reason the Italian Uniesi built it, because they're this only yacht company in the world that will make a custom-made yacht under 100 feet.
Yeah.
And we do whatever the customer wants, unless they don't like it. That's the Italian way of doing it. Then we do whatever you want, anything you want, but we don't do blue. That was literally 3 weeks of me arguing with it. We do whatever I want. We do
It's
whatever.
like every great Italian restaurant I've ever been in. You can have anything you want, as long as it's this and this, because that's what we're cooking.
And then, so I said, what are the engines? It's Cat... I got probably of the nomenclature incorrect. It was a Cat 780s or something. And one of my buddies, they did a whole show for Caterpillar, comedy show, and for trade, I got one of the engines.
Yeah.
Instead of my pay, I got one engine. I said, well, what's the 760s? And he says, well, 760 horse diesel. And I said, what's the one above that? And then the head of Cat at that time said, Tim, no. There's a guy in the room I hear going, well... Who just said, well, what is it? Oh, the 810s. Or it will fit. Oh, good, great. What's above the 810? Tim, we're not going there. And the same dude goes, well, who's the guy that says, well, who says, what would it be like? Let's forget. And so 1160s, they have to put the turbo on the back. They had to switch some pumps, but it's basically the same block, just a different head on it. So cut to, I've got, instead of 1,400 horsepower, I've got 3,200 horsepower, the 2 biggest engines. I told Cat, don't do the yellow. Let's do something cool called a Cat Marine. Mm-hmm. For all your boats, it would be a big bubble, like you're looking through a bubble. It says Cat Marine. And all the young people loved it. And Cat goes, we don't need comedians rebranding Caterpillar. I said, I'm not a comedian here. I'm an old designer from college. Anyway, I got those in the car, in the boat. The downside is I didn't understand power to weight ratio of diesels. I did know that diesels don't like to be pegged. Diesels don't like flooring them. They like 800-900 RPM. They don't like, and they the guy said at one point, I've run out of fuel a lot. He goes, you ever see GPH? Did you see that gauge? That's gallons per, or GPM, or gallons per minute or hour. And I go, no, because it doesn't work. No, because it's pegged. Every time you floor these things, and it is a fast, huge boat. All the captains that have taught me, I now can captain myself. The diesels really don't like running like this, and I've now learned that I've popped filters and stuff like that. And
So you got 2 of these engines on a boat at your lake house?
well, like on Lake Michigan.
On Michigan.
Yeah.
I just, you just kind of glossed over it, but I'm stuck on this. You basically worked for an engine. Like, yeah, keep your money. Just give me one of the engines.
Yeah, I did. Well, they're a lot of money.
I'm just saying.
The
It's
big
still,
diesels, and they said, we'll do a custom-made, work with Uniesi, and we'll send them, but one will be on us. And they blueprinted them both.
Yeah.
It's both of them. And they're white. There are only 2 cats that are white. And I will give nothing but kudos to that company. That company does things right.
I've been working with them for 12 years probably. I go to Con Expo every year in Vegas.
That company takes quality correct. They take, what I've heard, they have mechanics are married to the couple machines, and they've come out when we need them. They've been.
It's such a history, man. That company is
Can't find workers.
They are all the time looking for machinists.
And
they have, it's a franchise model, and there's something like a dozen cat franchisees that are billion-dollar companies in and of themselves.
Yeah.
They're so big, and they're so massive, and they're so always hiring, and it's just one of those brands. You don't see them advertise much because all you have to do is drive around and yellow iron.
Right.
I remember those guys.
I don't know how they compete with, our weird competitor, China, because I don't know the details of it. I know what friends of mine have dealt with them on a large scale, and I know in a comedy joke I did with some military guys, I said, so they don't want to pay for the plans to the whatever they call their version of the 737.
Right.
And they said, well, we made it better. Yeah, made it better. You didn't have an airliner until you took Boeing's designs and just made them cheaper because of the workload. Right, we made a better plane. There's a Cino or whatever they call it, the Chino, whatever they call it. He goes, I know, but you took the original drawings from Boeing and never paid for them. Mm-hmm. And this is they've been fighting over this. They said, were you saying we stole it? Because saving face is a very major part of their culture. And they said, whatever you want to call it, you took designs from somebody else. We didn't take them, we made them better. Again, it's nomenclature here. If you would pay Boeing what you owe them, this will all go away. So you're telling us that we have to admit that we stole the design. Yes. You can call it whatever you want, but we go to Hague or someplace over in Europe and decide. And they did decide that they would do that, but they want the final jurisdiction back in China. They said, no, that's not going to.
This is never going to stop, Tim. I mean, that's happening right now with this little thing called a lab leak. Like, we kind of want to know.
Right.
We kind of want to know before we can move on. And what about DeepSeek? Are you reading what's going on? I mean, NVIDIA lost $600 billion yesterday.
Right.
And
but they didn't see this coming. So I think it's lazy.
Why would we believe anything China says? Honestly, why would we just take it at face value? Oh, you developed a better mousetrap. You wouldn't have taken any of these processors, right? You wouldn't have done it. There's no industrial espionage. There's no subterfuge.
If you don't look at it that way, do you recall, and I say this out of all due respect because I'm a huge fan of Sony and many Japanese companies. The Japanese did this many, many years ago. Mm-hmm. Remember, it was a mimic. Didn't come up with the idea. They'd make the idea far better.
Right.
And I agree. There was a point when the Japanese were buying all sorts of land in the United States and all that, and it's a mentality that I get only because I'm a comedian. And comedians, maybe like musicians, we kind of naturally, like Carlin, it's observational comedy. And if I'm watching another comic do something funny, I'm observing it, so I'm kind of I can invariably steal some of his material. but make it better.
Well,
And where do you start the line? Where did you get where did the idea come from?
It's music, man. For me, everything redounds to music. So it's all, there are only so many notes.
Yes.
It's a handful of notes. You know,
You're not making new notes.
You're not making new notes. Now, you might group them up a little
Yes.
different. You might mess with the tempo. You might do something with the rhythm. But in the end, you know, it's variations on a theme.
Yes.
That's what it is. And a great comic set, a great song. But man, the minute you get too close, now you're Ed Sheeran, now you're in court for 5 years, now it's
If it
copyright.
gets too close, I get it. And I said, I use this all the time, is a Ferrari, I think it's a 63 GTO. That's been mimicked and stolen, that design. Once they did that design, and I think it was fresh. I don't think that 3/4 view, the roof, the front, the sides has been in Camaros, 240Z, Datsuns or Nissans. That's been stolen. They've stolen that idea. How many times has that beautiful shape been stolen? And I said, it's source material.
Yeah.
The original. I got good friends with Steve Jobs, and he said that iPhone was a series of mistakes. The one was called Newton, if anybody remembers. I got every device he did. Oh, this is good. Now I'm seeing that doesn't quite work. That doesn't. Yeah, that kind of works. And it was, the idea was, and if I got him right, and God bless him, he's a great guy, great family. He just wanted to make it simpler to dial. That's why he put the screen on there. Literally, not his words, his vibe. He said, if you want to go to the internet, you could do that, but who would want to do that when you could do it on the computer? Never had any idea that we would completely supplant the internet on the computer by using it on there. But the original idea of that screen was just so you wouldn't have to go dee, dee, dee on the phone. Right. That was the idea of it. That literally changed everything. I have not seen that same sense of design, because I'm a phone freak. I've got probably 60 phones because I love the technology. They haven't changed, up until they were starting to get really wild dial phones. Who was it? Tag Heuer, the watch company, was making phones, and the phones they're still for sale. There's some Russian ones that have Ulysses Nardin watch winder in the phone, so the phone would wind itself while you're using it. And the phones, even back then, God, I don't know what year that was, 2001 maybe, they were $9,000, and they were like watches. They were that fancy. It was right.
What makes a company like Tag Heuer go?
Well, they thought the phones, that's what going to be it. Let's make the phone high end, better quality, everything's going to be jeweled, and then. Literally a month later, Jobs' phone came out, and they went, well, that ain't going anywhere. People aren't going to go with that. It was like, what was his, DuPont? Dumont.
Dumont.
He said, they're not going to give up horses. God, go with this stinky Model A or Model T. Right. That'll be stupid. He owned all the horse trailers and all the horse things. People love horses. Who's going to go with this? Everywhere. And
so certain.
And he started GM, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, and he lost everything, and then he bought all these off-brand Buick, Chevy, Cadillac, and put them into one group. And I thought, what an amazing freaking story. That whole story again is quality. This is from Leno, and I don't know the truth of this. Is you could bury a Model T, and it probably would start 50 years later unburied it. There's nothing. That thing is so well built, marine stainless steel. Have you ever driven one?
Yeah. This is so weird, Tim. A week ago, up in Marin, I met a guy named Charlie who has a massive car collection, who has started the only automotive shop class in a Marin high school. It's at Terra Linda High School, and it's called Shifting Gears.
Not anymore, it's not.
I'll tell him.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, Disney will be in touch.
Disney law. We will sue him.
But I literally waved goodbye to him as he drove one of his Model Ts the 2 miles to the school because it was the Model T that the kids would see it and their minds would explode.
Right.
And they would have nothing but questions. And this guy, Charlie, he says, once I get them asking questions, once I show them that it could be a ball bearing, could be a Medal of Honor, could be a Model T, but once I get them asking questions, I got them. And that's what we need to do. We need to find a way to reinvigorate that curiosity.
Make it like I've told my sister's really into kind of the JFK. Just eat better. Why are we coloring? And I don't even like to say that when they advertise these sugary cereals, this is poison it really is poison for kids. Cheerios are okay; they're still sugar in it. But if you could brand the industrial arts better, if you brand it to these are cool people, I can't. It's just because, hopefully, guys like us, I'm astounded at how impressed I am with plumbers. I know nothing about plumbing. I just love what they do. And I have a series of plumbers that I deal with and a series of house painters. Both of them love what they do. Their van is clean. It's real tweaked out. And the guy says, there's nothing like finishing a job.
Oh, that's Dirty Jobs 101.
You finish
a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then you start again.
A guy when I was growing up, he had I think it was a C5. It was the smallest bulldozer, but it was freaking perfect. He had it on a perfect trailer in a truck, and he dug the foundation with that. He'd pull it out, so he make himself a ramp, and that's all that was left. He'd dig the whole thing by scraping the wood, thinging up, and then he'd hose it off, put it back up on his trailer, and I just always dreamed of that. He'd go home and, honey, what'd you do today? Dug a hole. What's for dinner? But he finished a job. He had great respect for the machines that do the job.
Yeah.
You must respect, like in my business, it's all about the crew, and especially the PAs. The people on the start end of that do so much work for so little remuneration. The Teamsters their union covers them. The actors is a guild. I don't know what the guild does. It doesn't really protect it. The people that do all the work don't like to be Marxist about it. I don't know how to transfer this mentally. They need to be better taken care of. It's got to be a cool job. And
Well, think about your own deal, man. You're a comedian. You don't have a guild.
No.
There's no.
No.
There's no. Your material, right? And this is the thing that I find the most galling. We're so litigious, and there's so much copywritten stuff I have to worry about now, even in this little space. But like when you saw your act appear in the first couple seasons of Home Improvement, that material basically became the property of Disney.
Yeah.
Like right in front of you.
I know.
How'd that, like, were they just making it better? or were they
I was too stupid. I didn't understand, and I still don't quite understand. That became quite an emotional process for me because I said, if anybody wrote, and this is because of mistreatment and legitimate concerns from the Writers Guild against studios that never had any rights to their own material. So the Writers Guild came up with to protect the writers who do everything.
Yeah.
We don't have anything without the writers. Nothing. They are the ones that do everything. They got no credit for it. They got no remuneration. That changed. And what happens is you overstep the boundaries a little bit. So that means anybody who wrote my material down, Writers Guild protected them and not me. And they said, well, he wrote that. Yeah, but I do it on stage. And so
He transcribed it.
He transcribed it. So you're saying at one point, it wasn't a threat, it was a mild threat. I don't know what that's called. We could actually stop you from, they wanted me to sign early.
They could stop you from doing your act.
They wanted me to stop me from doing my act. They said, we could come into, I said, you know what? I'd like to see it. And I did a big concert in Frisco after that argument. And I said, I want you to have guys come in and with the little mouse lapels in the middle of an act, 6,000 people go, cut. We don't want him doing any of the material until he signs his contract. No, we own the grunts. We own that. And they said, we're not going to do that. I said, yeah, but you threatened that. And there's comics, we're in the burlesque union, I believe. Magicians, strippers, and comics.
Back to magic again.
Yeah, I don't think magicians are protected.
No, but I'm just saying this whole conversation, like something magic hangs over it, whether it's the art in the vocation or the art in the comedy or the art in the writers, this desire, or all the philosophy and all of the physics, this desire to try and quantify and understand these things, man.
Right.
It's what makes interesting people interesting.
Well, I appreciate that. It's also about translating it to, I so admire what you're doing with that. I'm seeing it in some young men that come to my shop, and some of my friends have little boys, and they are now fascinated by cars and fascinated by how it works. And in this world, I know that the little girl across the street is going to be a physicist or scientist. This girl has figured out. So it's not just a male thing. I know more about males because I grew up in a boys' household. So I don't understand how the women in my life and also the friends' daughters have that same look. How does that work? I'm wondering. This girl measures stuff visually. She goes, but if we did this, she's making something to do with her dollhouse. However, she's forming math as it equates to a building process.
She's figuring it out.
She's figuring it out. And I said, I want that on a fundamental level, because whatever we screw up, and we do screw up a lot, we can fix. That's where your genius, and I've watched you, and that's what I so admire about whatever we screw up, we can unscrew up. We'll see it in the Palisades. I pray that they figure out culling the forest. It's been going on. I'm a 4-H guy from way back. Why don't at least 20 feet to 100 feet around houses, you cull it. You don't allow that scrub to come back. And whenever the power wires go through the forest, it has to be 50 feet on either side. They don't go through the forest. You just can't have that.
Those timber roads were natural fire breaks for years. And 30 years ago, Ed Ring sat here a couple weeks ago, right after I called him. The guy runs the Policy Institute, Water and Energy for California. And he's like, we were taking 6 billion board feet of timber out of the national forest for decades. Now we're taking less than 1 billion. There's so much fuel. It's just everywhere.
Right.
We are living in a tinderbox. We're living in one. And I know you're sensitive to this. We all just went through it. I was down here when it happened too. And I keep thinking, like, what would happen in New Orleans if after Katrina we learned that the governor had refused to put in levees? Right. Just not going to do it.
Just not going to do it.
Or maybe in Oklahoma, Moores, whatever that was, God, that poor town. They just decided, well, yeah, it happens, but we don't put in tornado shelters here. Yes, we live in Tornado Alley, but we're just not going to do that.
And what is that? Again, you get the philosophical. What is the mindset in that group that decides I'm not going to do that? And I said, what? And why don't these happen in Germany or Spain or other countries? Why just here? And oddly enough, one of the firemen said, a lot of this is natural. There's a lot of seed pods that are indigenous to California that do not pop unless they're burnt. So he said, if we weren't living here prehistorically, that's exactly how this thing recircles. It gets wet, scrub comes up, it catches fire, and all the seeds pop. He said, that's how this thing goes. I said, okay, we have to manipulate. Unfortunately, we live here too now. So you'd have to at least cull it. And I was in the Serengeti with my family, and they have these, I think they're called date palms. I hope I got those ones you see in all the pictures where the stem goes way up and there's an umbrella.
Yeah.
And if California, at least close, they're not whatever they call savanna, they don't need a lot of water, but they shade the ground so the scrub can't grow. So if at least close to humanity, and you'd have pillars of that, we start growing the African trees that are, because we don't have indigenous trees. I've been planting trees in my area. That's one of my very difficult because California, if I want to do it for free, I mean, I'm doing it. I'll put them in and I'll take care of them, but I need permission to put it in. And sometimes the California tree people, I'm a Arbor Day guy. I don't know, why are we picking in the set deck people near trees for the community, trees for the movie community for sets. He even asked me, why did you put date palms in here? I said, well, that's what the city wanted me to put in there. He goes, say it out loud and tell me why that's not going to be a good idea. I said, date palms, which is tropical, and they're palm trees, which is it's nut bearing. He goes, so nut bearing means bugs and birds. Date palm means it needs a lot of water and it's going to droop. So I've got all these in the state. Well, it's good looking. I said, we're back to that good looking thing. They're not functional. I've got trees in my horrible area that I've updated all along. We planted trees all along this bad area in North Hollywood. And they go, well, what is that thing? It's been hit by a garbage truck. Homeless people slip under it. It's been caught fire and it's still there. And that's an indigenous California tree that somebody clipped early on. So it's a bush actually, but they kept trimming it so it grew into a tree. It's literally indestructible.
Yeah.
And it's indigenous to California. I said, and I wish I could remember the name of it, because now I'm planting those in a nursery and culling them as babies so that they grow up. And then I find most shop owners don't want trees in front of their stores because they flower right at the sign level.
Right.
So I said, okay, now we got to change it. So you got to cull them longer so they don't flower till they get above 8 feet. And then it's right at the top of their sign. Then they don't mind it, but they don't want to take care of them. Well, these don't need taken care of. I don't know what they are. It's a bush that you cull it into a tree and it turned into a tree. But I'm not kidding. It hits by a car. It caught fire. It's still there. These date nut palms that the city made me put in, I've got 2 trucks that got to go out to take care of 25 trees that are so buggy and they drop fruit. And the guy says, but this is working with the translation between getting stuff done, shop foreman, pit boss, line producer. I need those men and women trained with a nonpartisan perspective is how do we get this done? I have to work with, I used to love the line producer. He has to work with the studio. Studio says, we're not paying this for that movie. Union, we're not working for this. He goes, okay, then we're not going to do it. Okay, stop. We're willing to go to this, and we're willing to go to this. It's a thing called compromise. It's not going to look like you want it to look. And it's not going to get the money you want to get, but we're going to move it forward and we'll do the next one. It's that line producer, foreman, I don't have them. I don't see them. They're not being trained for it in school. I make jokes because I hope they don't say it. The kids at my kids' school, the boys especially, say, how you doing? They don't seem to have a skill set for anything. There's no industrial arts at the school anymore. They've taken that out. Thank God they have a dance part and they have the art part and the photography, but still there's no, and if I donate any more money to the school, I'm going to demand they get, I can't think of a name for it.
Shifting gears.
But a name from what? Industrial arts. How do you, I guess the word art has to be branded better.
Yeah. I'd probably go back to that. Actually.
Industrial arts.
I really would. I don't think, with regard to our earlier point about borrowing material and making it better, I don't think you can make it better. I think that's what it is. It's industrial, which is masculine and broad and universal, and it's artistic.
Yeah.
Which is something different, something more sensitive, but the two smashed together.
I used to use the term, I took painting and art most of the time and got so ADD. I got so bored with, where are the paint brushes? Oh, we use those for a display over there. So that you go to the art department and nothing was where it was.
Yeah.
Industrial arts, literally, it was set up, cleanup. That was basically
everything in its right place.
And then you got about 4 minutes to do your work because it's, all right, set up. And everybody go get their tools, they get their workspace, and then you get working on, all right, clean up. And I go, did we do anything here? And most of it was, but the tools are always where they're supposed to be. When I want anything, it's in the, because you spent most of your time out of respect for the area that you're working in first. and then finish the product. Like today we're going to do hinges. That's we're working on hinges. So that's focused on what you're doing. And then remember, you got 15 minutes at the end. I want everything put back. You don't just leave it there. The bell. Oh shoot, we were late. No, that's not how it works. And I said that I'm missing that. What I didn't like about art was that. What I didn't like about IE was design, because I did get in trouble with my industrial arts guy, because he said we're making what are we doing, chairs or something. I said, but I want to make a chair that you can disassemble quickly. He said we're not doing that. And I go, well, I don't want to make a recipe box. He goes, and he even told me, he said, I appreciate what you're doing. You wanted something useful instead of a box. You're going to fail. And I said, I'm willing to fail if you'll help me make the chair. And I made a kind of a custom-made chair, which I still have. I wanted to make a chair that you could mass produce for college kids that was $6 in wood, but it looked, and I even took it down to Tennessee to a place they were going to buy it. But they said, this is a brilliant idea. And I said, I think so. Well, so we need $500,000 up front to make it. We'll do the rest. I went, oh, yeah, well I have about $36. I thought I'd sell the idea. And they said, here's what the problem with chairs is, Mr. Allen, is it.
How old are you at this point?
It was a second year in college.
Okay.
And he said, chairs have already been designed. So you have to make a lot of these first, because as soon as it does well, you're going to get people copying it, because you can't patent a chair. It's
making it better.
You can,
variation on a theme.
You're making it better. And I said, I called industrial arts, I called design is useful art. That's what I loved about design.
Yeah.
It's the sensibility of art, but I want to use it. I don't want to put it on the wall. I have a lot of paintings. I love paintings, and I'm a painter, and I love all that. I love about industrial arts the people that make furniture, tripods. There's an artistic view. It's like you just said. It's a balance.
Yeah.
It can make it look good. There's people that make this whole device, forgive me, that looks better than this one.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the most expensive one, and sometimes it's the cheapest one. It's just somebody had an artistic point of view, which is why I love the liberal heart, liberal politicians. I love where you're coming from.
Right.
You don't want people starving. There's nothing around that. How you do that is it's California all the time. Affordable housing for the 62,000 that live downtown.
Most decent people that I know that are on opposite sides of the aisle actually want the exact same thing. It's just, how are you going to do it? I said shortcuts or not. Shortcuts or not is the way. It's like, well, we want people to make a living wage, but should you just raise the wage to make it a living wage? And that's a shortcut. An elevated minimum wage is a shortcut.
Right.
A rent control is a shortcut. And if you're not terribly concerned about the unintended consequences,
it's unintended consequences. What a great word. You think this through. Oh God, I hate even to bring it up. I love utility knives, so I built one, and I designed it so that the handle, I took a piece of clay and I squeezed it like this, and then I took that and made that into my utility knife. I got a Canadian company to help me fabricate it, and it comes apart, but it's got a little dial at the back, and it's got 12 blades in it, but you pull the cartridge out, turn it around, and you got 24. And we will all sharpen those blades. You send that cartridge back for us. And it got huge reviews. I can't remember. We got $1 million in sales up front from Builders Square at the time. They've gone away, and everything was going well. And I was going to do it like Paul Newman. I was going to sell it in my drill, which I did a drill at the time.
Yeah. And
all the money was going to go to charity. And it was brilliant. We didn't do the metal one. The metal one was formidable, but it was going to be $19, and it's a lot for a utility knife. And because there's a lot of other utility knives, you unscrew them and you flip the blade around. This was unbelievable. My brother-in-law is a drywaller, and he said, I sent him out to a bunch of people first, and we'd already sold the first batch. He goes, this is just unintended consequence. This is brilliant, Tim. Everybody loves it. Drywallers especially, because they go through blades. They just let new blade. He goes, how do you clean it? And I go, what? What? Well, when we're doing drywall, we're pulling a lot of the dust, and sometimes it's wet, back into the casing. I go, can you give me a minute? And I go take it, and there's no way you can clean it.
Want to buy a chair?
Holy God, it was horrifying. I had to call up all the vendors. I said, we've got unintended consequences. We worked it on every single application. We never worked it with wet drywall.
Right.
And that's what it was meant for. And they pull the drywall back in there, and you'd have to unscrew it, take this cartridge out, soak that in water, but it made everything. And I just, oh God.
Yeah.
And I think about failure is the foundation of success. You know, you've got to fail at this over and over again to do any of this. And none of the designs I've worked at, whether that my drill was the best, that was I moved the handle forward. Now they're all like that. It used to drills, the handles at the back.
Yeah.
It was like this. I moved it forward so it's middle. All my first prototype drills, now they all do that. And I put bearings on both sides of the armature. Unfortunately, that made the drill last forever, and most drill companies don't want that.
And now you got no planned obsolescence, so you don't have a customer for life.
I said, and my first hammer, the Tim Allen hammer, I used an axe handle instead of a hammer handle. So I had that swerve to it.
What's the corollary for your shows? Are they getting better as they go? Or are they getting, are they evolving the same way?
Right now we've got, they see what I'm doing. I put the shop part of it is run by a woman named Kate Fox, who did all my History Channel stuff, who's been in the shop. Arguably happens to be my older daughter. However,
Arguably?
Well, because for some reason, if you're a plumber, you want your kids in your business, but for some reason, if you're an actor, it's nepotism. I don't understand that. She did all the work on History Channel, and she's one of those line producers. And so I said, listen, you got to talk to the writers, and they got to pitch a show, and you got to go, you have the guts and the authority to go, that doesn't work. You can't have that happen. So you give them a foundation of why the car shop works, and now it's starting to gel where, number one, when you see the shop scenes in Shifting Gears, it's gorgeous because we're using some really cool cars that are in process.
Are they your cars?
Uh-huh.
That's
We didn't,
ingenious.
I didn't want it that way because these are rare cars. What we've done, and also in a real cool way, we're going backwards with wrapping. We take it's a 100-point restoration 455 GTO. That now we've wrapped it to look like it's rusted and needs restoration. So we'll just pull the wrap off over the series. So because we can't restore a car in real time. You know, restorations, as much as they show on those TV shows, you don't restore a car in a week. That I don't know how that happens.
Right.
You know how long this stuff takes.
Editing.
Well, so we're going backwards in it, and now everything has to be real. Whatever we're doing in that shop, and I'm loving it because in the shop we have upholstery gets done and all this, and the show will bleed from that. I'm able to be the actor, this Kat Dennings, who plays my daughter, same birthday as mine, obviously many years apart, is very much like the character I play. It's a little more curmudgeon-y, but I have him as a what's a Wonderful Life. If you remember that Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart was getting on a train to go to college, and his dad had a heart attack, had to come back. I used that. I was going to the Rhode Island School of Design, got in an airplane. Your dad owns a regular heavy machine shop in North Hollywood. He had a heart attack, and I have to go take care of it. I worked there all my life, but mostly did art pieces. I was an artist, so I got to play a character who's not bumbling like Tim Taylor.
Yeah.
Mike Baxter is more of a businessman, outdoor guy, but he didn't ever camp. This guy is going to be a designer, so he's constantly in his house. There's designs. He's a guy that is building stuff next to a dance studio. He sees I want these two worlds to mix. The young people that I hate on the show because they're making a lot of noise, just like out in North Hollywood. There's so much freaking noise in that place.
Yeah.
But I walked in there one day and saw the work that these kids do the chance of them becoming a dancer. What are you doing? My niece dancing in the Washington Ballet. Where does that go? It's just an expression of the best of human beings, dance and the arts. And then I see the restoration business where a guy's just doing this, I was going to say in this new Vic hot rod, the electric hot rod's on the show. This is almost done, so we just took a few fenders off. We'll get there. And the guy did, what's it called on shotguns where they etch it's filigree, isn't it?
Filigree.
We have the bumpers are all filigreed, and you'll never see it.
Yeah.
When this car goes to, it won't go to auction because I'm going to keep it. It'll go to SEMA. The detail on this hot rod, the genius of these guys, Bodie Stroud, who did most of the interior work, and now the filigree guy, took him 6 weeks to just do the tips of it.
Just the tip.
But it's this. It's a guy that does this, and I can't do that. I'm more of a. I wish I can think. Roy Lichtenstein or Lichtenstein. I met him. I'm a pop artist. I love it. Mm-hmm. And he became like a lot of these guys. It's process art. They got so far away from their work. They were telling, okay, no, paint. Yeah, that. And then they go to another painting. And that's what I've done. I've built probably 12, 15 cars that I've had very little. I love hands-on, but however, I've got other things that need my time, so I just go, no, all green. Let's go matte finish, and then but I have to give it up to the painter. He goes, I'm gonna just do matte, but I want to put no, all right, do that, and then I do it. That was a good idea. So I'm mentoring other creative people, but the whole process, what are we doing this for? I said, it's temporary, guys. I'm not going to live, so do the best you can to add value to every situation, every single situation. And I want these kids, as I said, this one young kid come in, he said, little boy, and now I see it. The kid across the street's got to be 5. And he loves my little collection of little cars. There's a couple that I won't let him touch because they're priceless, but I said he doesn't know that.
You can be doing anything you want, man. At this point in your life, it's so great that you're doing this. It's so great that you've integrated everything you give a damn about into a sitcom. I mean, that's a
seems cheesy when you say it like that.
Yeah,
you integrate all this great stuff into a sitcom.
Well, I mean, I say the same thing about myself when I'm trying to compliment myself quietly. It's like, to be able to sneak your ideas into a commercial endeavor.
There you go.
That's what I mean to say. That has kept me sort of sane, and it seems to have kept you sane adjacent.
I appreciate what you do. That's why I'm doing this. Is it guys like you? I can't encourage enough men and women like you that encourage others to be of value and be of value. And I don't dismiss it, but this is not of value.
I get it.
It's just I switched phones one time because I work with Apple, so I was on Android phones and then special custom ones I had. And at one point I got on this. Finally, I got used to the iPhone, which is years ago, and I go, the battery doesn't last on this thing. And the guy said, maybe because you're on the phone all day long. And even if it's videos about work, like I find it's a mixed blessing. I can fix anything now because of that phone.
Right.
I am shocked. And I go, I might as well try it. How do you get those little weird batteries out of the small remotes for candles? They have now remotes for candles. I couldn't open the stupid, and I go, all right, how do you open the stupid remote from this? And there's 9
There's a guy.
There's 9 guys. Some guys are good at it. Some guys just show you. The blessing is Google will answer almost any question, especially for workaround guys like me, how to fix stuff. I can't believe how good they are, how much they are, and these guys do the work. But now they're getting somebody like these guys that show us how they do that. And that's where I come in, is I love point of view. I love shooting how we're doing stuff. And I said, that's why I love this live stuff, having a live crew, live crowd. You, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on our edits, you don't see all of the live stuff because it doesn't fit. Sometimes the laughs are too loud. Sometimes the laughs they carry into the next scene. And we're fighting that right now. How do we make this like George Burns and Gracie Allen, when this is how this all started? It was vaudeville crowd got in there, and then we added cameras. And then pretty soon they had to stop because we have to change things. And the crowd has to be sequestered a little bit. And right now weirdly enough, I'm getting mixed. The people that of a certain age go, yes, because I wanted to say, filmed in front of a live studio audience, and the new people go, ooh, that's kind of old school. And I said, but it reminds the new people that are watching, because our show's done so well on linear TV, they're not used to this. I don't know that the young viewers are used to live. Was that? They call it a laugh track. I said, it's not a laugh track. We never show it. But those are people. That's 200-300 people in there clapping, and we rehearse so much that we don't keep them there but 2 or 3 hours.
That's great.
It's a live. Well, you've done it.
Yeah, I've done it with you. When's it on?
Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock on ABC and Hulu the next day.
Well, I'll tell you, man, I haven't seen it yet, but I watched the promo, and it's freaking funny.
It is funny. It is tragically sad. He's really in pain over losing his wife, which I love playing that. And then 2 seconds later, it's making jokes, but with the two grandkids and Kat Dennings, and
You told a story. You were in prison, and you were about to get the absolute shit knocked out of you. Guys got you by the throat.
Right.
And you just start laughing.
They had a thing called Toastmasters. You were allowed to go out of the penitentiary to a church that was adjacent, and then you got a regular meal, which was great. And so we had a Toastmaster meeting, and I'm a pretty good speaker. So I'd host the meeting, and everybody learn how to express yourself without hitting somebody with a brick or whatever their problem was. So everybody's pretty cool there, and I'm starting to kind of make fun of people. And this guy, and a guy like this robs a bank and doesn't think it's robbing a bank because I didn't mean to. We get back into the prison. He comes in, and it's always a bad sign when they shut the doors are open when it's open count. And he gets into my cell, and he comes in and shuts the door, and there's a sweat. The voice goes, hey, why'd you shut the door? And he comes in and goes right to me with this, and nobody's ever talked to me like that. You made a fool out of me, and I'm going to make you pay for that. And he's got me up against the wall, and my face is real distorted because he's kind of missed the shit underneath here because he said, do this. And all I could see behind him was my younger brother and my older brother we used to mess with each other all the time. If they could see my face all distorted like this, it's going, well, I did. No, everything came out of my mouth was hysterical. And I start laughing with, and he goes, this is funny to you? And now it made it even more. And now my brothers are going behind him, and he's going, this is not funny. You're going to, now he's starting to kind of go, you are a strange man. And he just drops me. He goes, just don't say stuff like that to people you don't know. And he walks out, and I'm on the ground going, I don't know what just happened there, but I wasn't scared in that thing because I deserve it, I guess, because I can't make fun of guys I don't know. But the fact is, the comedy part of me has saved my life more than any other thing. It's also got me in a lot of trouble, but because I said it doesn't. If ever I get arrested, the comedy guy goes away. Goes, I didn't. I was. He goes, I thought it was funny, but I'm gonna just step over it, step away.
So that's the moment. That's where we land the plane. That's great. You're about to get the crap knocked out of you. You laugh, and somehow or another, you're still standing.
Right.
Thanks for coming in and doing this.
You bet, man.
Really great. You barely touched your coffee.
I don't like coffee. No, I just can't. No matter how manly, we're talking about men stuff. This is I went with the comic. Nobody said, look, I would have killed everybody in this room.
Goes to credibility.
You don't go, there's no mafioso movie. We're going to kill him. 2 guys go in to rip him up and make sure his family pays for that. Hold on a minute. There's something about a straw that is just horrifying.
Yeah, God.
But I'm going to leave you with this one about laughing at it. It says, my mother's not doing well at all, and luckily I've got 4 siblings myself. We fly with, and she's really 96. Everything's falling apart, and we had to move her out of a house. I built her a house that's on 1 level so she took care of my stepfather. She married after my father died. Great guy. Broke her. She'd have to lift him up. She's just couldn't live in her house anymore. And if anybody's been through this, you can't tell, you won't be able to tell me, I live in this house. And she just wouldn't, she was falling with help in the house. Moved her to a facility of just a quarter mile away from this beautiful house. And then my whole family shows up every Thanksgiving, and there's like 30 of us, and we usually use her house. And the doctor said, my sister and brother, I want to take her back to her house. We'll have Thanksgiving there, and we'll take her back to the home. Mm-hmm. And the doctor said, 50-50 chance she'll come out of this stupor and realize that she's back in her house and will not want to go, and you're going to go through this horrible again. Or she'll just forget and have dinner and then drive her back. In the middle of dinner, she gets up, walks to her bedroom in the house. My sister sees that. She goes to the bedroom. I hear screaming. She comes out in tears. She won't leave. So she's catatonic. My brother goes in, and he's swearing at her. And I go, hey, guys, let's get out. Granted, this is a boy that's put my mom through hell. I was incarcerated. I've been a bad kid. Stealing cars, I'm just not a good kid. So my mom and I have a very different relationship. She's in bed like this. No, I'm not going anywhere. And she's rigmarole, 105 pounds. She's just stiff. Go ahead, try to get me in. I'm not going anywhere. She's screaming at me. Go, Mom, everybody, Jeff, Becky out. I'm going to take you to the car. I'm going to lift you up. We're going back there. She goes, you go ahead and try it. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to have to use some weight so your ass bends to get you in the chair. So it's going to be uncomfortable, and I'm not going to hurt your knee. You go ahead and try. And she's like this stick. I've got this stick, and I had to do one of these where you go into bender. Oh, you didn't get hurt. I didn't hurt you. I just bent you. I get her in the wheelchair, and as I get down to put her foot in the stirrup, she kicks me so hard my glasses go like this. But it hurt really bad. I go, Jesus. Oh, geez. I look over her shoulder, and my brother is now laughing so hard. He's just bent over. It's the prison guy. And she kicked me so, I go, oh, God. Right across here, I go, Jesus, Mom. And then I get her in the stirrups, and then I get out to the SUV, and I'm going to get you out of here. And you just tried. She's back to this. And I lift her up, and she's a baby. I get her, and as soon as I get her in a vulnerable position to get her, scoop like this, she hauls off and hits me a fist, side of my head. Now the glasses fly off, and I go, my brother's not there this time. I go, I don't know how to say this. I say, if you do that again, I'm going to punch you back. Because the reaction, Mom, is no one takes a punch. Don't punch me again. We get back to the home. Now I'm doing this to get her out of the wheelchair. And she looks at me, she goes, you got to admit that was kind of fun. I said, son of a...
She did it all for a gag?
She did it all for a gag. And I said, God, Mom, I didn't pull it, though. I didn't pull the punch. But you kicked me. That first kick was... I thought she broke my nose.
Well, on behalf of my mother, who's 87 today...
Oh, good.
Thank you for sharing that. It'll give me something to look forward to the next 9 years or so. You're the best. Shifting Gears, Wednesday, 8-ish?
ABC, 8 o'clock.
Fantastic. Tim Allen, everybody.
Hey.
The philosopher.
Thanks, man.
That was terrific, dude.
If you like what you heard,
And even if you don't,
won't you please,
pretty please, subscribe.
Well, I hate to beg and I hate to plead, but please, pretty freaking please subscribe.